You're listening to the Wellness Evolution Community Podcast. I'm Dr. Christine Smith, and this is where your body becomes something you understand again, because symptoms aren't failures. They're your body's most honest attempt to protect you. Each episode, we decode those patterns with root cause physiology, nervous system insight, and metaphors that make your biology feel alive, understandable, and trustworthy. You are smart. Your body is designed to heal. Let's remember how together. Welcome back to the Wellness Evolution Community Podcast, where today I get to interview a really cool person, Seth Monk, who is a retired monk that has gone through so many different life experiences to come to this place where he is really bringing people back to themselves and back to understanding what peace truly is and how to manage their internal systems. So good morning, Seth. I'm so glad you're here. And I would love if you could just share a little bit with people about your journey into doing what you're doing now, because it's so unique and it's been such a unique journey and it's something not everybody gets exposed to. So I'd love if you could just tell them a little bit about it.
Well, hi, thanks so much for being here. Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening today. My name is Seth Monk. My journey begins probably in a different lifetime. I'm not really sure why my life took on the form that it did. I don't know many other like Jewish American dudes that went and became Buddhist monks in Germany, of all places. But yeah, when I was a kid, I kind of already felt that there was something else going on. I had, a series of experiences that bordered on like paranormal things and psychic things and high level synchronicities. And I really noticed and paid attention to that stuff. And when I got to college, I had this huge spiritual awakening based both in psychedelics and by meeting just a whole new group of people who were into spirituality. And I actually met a monk in college. And when I graduated college, the same monk said, hey, come check out my monastery. And I was of the generation where just as I was really looking for what am I supposed to do in the world, movies like The Matrix were out and Office Space where, it's about how much we hate corporate America and Rage Against the Machine and Nirvana were out. And so all of the messages that I kind of grew up with were this kind of like anger and pushback towards like the quote system that we were in. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to, go and work a job that I hated just to pay for the house that I slept in to go back to that job. And being an impressionable young kid, I didn't ever think that, oh, wait, maybe there's jobs you can do that are fun. I somehow had this, or that are interesting, right? It's somehow, it was very binary for me. It was like either you're like trapped and a slave to some system or you have to exit that system. So when I graduated college, I saw this exit where I could go to Germany, where this monastery was, and just live at this place with a community to work on myself, to develop myself. It was very self-oriented at that time. It was very like, ooh, this is fun for me, and ooh, I could do this, and ooh, I'm going to enjoy this. And I happened to run away to the one place that you can't run away from yourself once you get there. So our monastery was also a Chinese medicine center. So the bottom level was the meditation hall and the eating hall. The second level was all of these acupuncture rooms. And then the top floor was where we slept. And so I started doing massage and, working with people all day long. And we had multiple meditation masters from different Buddhist traditions come and stay with us. So I got to learn from them. And, I'd say that my journey there in the monastery, it was really this deep dive into myself. And once I kind of started rearranging foundational things in myself, it started trickling back out into service and into, how can I share and support others with these things that I learned and realized.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. And I specifically love when you said I ran away to the one place where you can't run away for yourself. And I think a lot of people think like, oh, if I just move or if I go do this, like everything will change. But it's like a concept of avoidance, which is like spiritual bypassing, which we can also talk about at some point in this conversation.
Yes.
But you also mentioned like just doing body work, and I want to help people understand the connection between the mind and the body, because I think that's where we really like sync on our paths of just understanding the body as this quantum vehicle that is interacting with the incredible frequencies all around us. But I'm
Yeah.
so curious from like an Eastern medicine perspective, a monk perspective, and a
Mhm.
bodywork perspective. How do those all interplay for you?
Sure. So take your finger, right? Lift one finger right there. You can do it too, right? And wiggle your finger like this. And now ask yourself, is this body or is this mind? What are we watching? Is this your body or your mind?
Both.
Hmm. So body without mind is a corpse. Mind without body is a ghost, right? But body and mind, when they're together, that's the living human, right? That's the
Mm.
animated object. Every movement of your body is your mind. All of the little ticks and twitches of your face and your smiles and the fingers and the way you hold yourself, right? Everything that you're doing with your body is an expression of the mind. So if you want to understand someone's mind, you can watch their body, right? And even on a deeper level, you can touch the body and feel where there's tension, feel how things are moving, how they're built. When you get deeper into understanding the body, you see that the body and the mind have certain connection points, we'll say. It actually, in Chinese medicine, it's the meridians, but also it's the chakra system, right? Where you have these certain areas in the body. And when I say the word chakra, a lot of people are like, oh, that's kind of woo, right? That this is this like stupid. I see this in yoga gift shop.
We'll just kind of
Where
keep going. So we're talking about spiritual bypassing.
people are going to suddenly,
So
yeah, scream.
I'll just kind of start with my follow-up thought. We'll just start that question over again.
No, no. Let me answer the question that you asked.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. So, in Buddhism, meditation does not come first. So, in Buddhism, actually, the Buddha said sila, samadhi, panya. So, sila becomes before samadhi. Samadhi is the meditation. Sila is actually the behavior rules. So, it's no killing, no lying, no stealing, for monks, it's like no sex, no sexual contact in any way. But for, other people, it's just nothing that causes sexual harm. And then also no drugs and intoxicants. These are just, things that blur and distort and hurt the mind. And as you start practicing these rules, these silas, these training rules, it's not like biblical, like thou shalt not sort of things. It's actually more psychologically based, where when you start living in a more harmonious way, in a less harmful way, in a way that you're more intentional and caring with your environment, you naturally fall into a place where you feel better in your own skin. You feel proud of yourself. You feel good about yourself. You feel naturally more relaxed. And then when you go into meditation, it happens organically because you're already getting into a state that it feels better and better and better to just be here with yourself. And then comes the panya, which is the wisdom, the realization after that. So when you talk about spiritual bypassing, and that's a whole other topic, there's lots of ways that can look, right? But oftentimes people try to jump right into the meditation and try to be spiritual and do the practices, but they don't want to do the groundwork, which is actually more psychological. It's actually more behavioral. For monks, it's like a lot about discipline also. Like we can't eat after a certain time of the day. Like, so it forces us to have to wake up early. In the monastery, you wake up at 5 every day, you meditate, you serve all day long. So you do all these practices that really grind against your ego and your wants and your like natural urges of how you want to exist in this world, and you hit against all of these blocks of expression in some way until you surrender or like look closely and see, what is this? Why do I keep having these urges, and what does it mean to get my urges fulfilled, and is it serving me or not, right? So it's actually the deep work. Originally, it's not sexy and it's not fun and it's not like interesting. It's grind. It's a lot of like waking up, going against your tiredness, going against your crankiness, not doing things that you want to do for like quick fixes to feel good. You're forcing yourself into a more disciplined, more mature state, to then get to something called meditation. And, I see people that, again, with the spiritual bypassing, they try to jump straight to the Panya. They'll read something in a book or hear something on a podcast, and then they think that they know it. And they'll walk around broadcasting this thing as if it's their wisdom that they now know how things are. I had this kid in the monastery one day come up to me and he's like, everything is empty. And I was like, oh, really? Everything? What about you? He said, of course, I am emptiness. And I was a monk, but whatever, but I pushed him and he like was shocked and I pushed him again. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, why? You're empty. It doesn't matter. And I got like aggressive and I just kept pushing him until he like yelled at me. And then I was like, so are you empty or not? And this is like the Zen path, is that we use different skillful means. We use different ways necessary to get people to see what's going on inside of them. So if somebody from the outside saw this monk pushing this guy, they'd be like, that's not very monk-like, right? But it was just a method I was using to get him to see something, and it worked quickly. So oftentimes people will wear spirituality like a costume, or they'll wear teachings like badges, like I know this thing. But if you look at the way they're actually living their lives, it's not integrated into who they are. It doesn't actually, it's not actually represented in their behaviors. So, spiritual bypassing for me, it's when instead of just being with what is there, I feel angry, I feel tired, I feel horny, I feel like whatever you're feeling, letting that be the thing you're feeling and starting there versus putting like a spiritual case around it and trying like not to look at the stuff inside, which will eventually anyway leak out and do its damage.
I think of it as like you have to let your mind release its waste to make space for the emptiness and the nothingness, where it's like that is the idea of where to hang out in meditation. For people who have spontaneous healings through meditation, it's generally seen in the studies that when they hang out in that space, that's where the spontaneous healings tend to take place. But it's this space of moving through all of your other stuff. And so the spiritual bypassing is sometimes when people are like, they are feeling angry or they are feeling grief and they're like, no, I'm just going to feel joy and I'm just going to completely forget about that situation. And yes, there is a component, and I say this often, that I think one of the biggest keys for clearing trauma is not necessarily figuring out your story, but it's remembering everything it made you forget, which is like how to feel peace and how to feel joy and how to feel at ease. And yes, there's a component of remembering those and bringing those into your life. But the only way that you can truly feel them is when your energy is not tangled up in the resentment or the anger or the sadness or the grief or the depression that you're repressing. And if you give it a moment to come to the stage, and this is a technique in a lot of subconscious psychological techniques, is you let whatever feeling is there come up and just be witnessed without shame. And I think that's like one of the biggest things for people is they're ashamed that they feel jealous. They're ashamed that they feel angry. They're ashamed that they feel sad, or they're like, oh, this just feels so terrible. Like I don't want to feel it. Instead of just being like, you know what, this is part of the spectrum of life and like the richness of life. So let me just feel this solidly for like 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. And then it's going to move through. And then I'm going to allow spaciousness. And so it's a balance of letting your thoughts go through your mind without being attached to them. And then also letting emotions move through you. And if one comes up, allowing yourself to actually be like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? Why is this here? Let me feel this for a second. What is this connected to? Oh, let me just like acknowledge it. And this can be hidden in so many people's like addictive habits, where if you're constantly reaching for that dopamine or you're like reaching for staying busy is like another one for people, right? It's like a dopamine habit, and you're like reaching for all these little addictive habits. You can ask yourself like, well, what is the energy that's driving this? Like, what is it trying to cover up? Like, what am I trying to keep myself busy with? And then I think when you do that work, then you're not spiritual bypassing anymore, because you're like, oh, I actually did the work that was present to get to the space of emptiness, versus skipping over all of it and then wondering why your spaciousness doesn't last.
Yeah. And there's many methods. It's like if I had a rotting, stump in my yard from a dead tree that I wanted to remove, I could whether tie it to a chain and pull it out with a car. I could whether pour gas on it and burn it. I could whether hit it with a chainsaw or dig at it with a shovel. There's a lot of different ways to do the same thing. So like the witnessing approach that you mentioned is one way to do it, building up new behaviors and habits to slowly shift the mind into another place is another way to do it. Going into the emptiness of the thing is another way to do it. That there's a lot of different approaches. And, what I saw during my time in the monastery is that everything needs its own unique approach. There's some things that you have to do something to shift them. There's some things that you have to like neglect them and they finally leave, right? It's like if I really want to eat chocolate, but I just
Yes.
neglect that
Stop
that
reinforcing the
that
pattern.
habit, eventually it'll die on its own, right? Um, there's some things that like I need to build a new habit, right? Something that's healthier. Sometimes it's about just the grit and going through it and just going through the suck of it, as it were. There's other things where it's about building up joy in a new direction and building up happiness, right? So this is in Buddhism specifically where wisdom comes in. That Buddhism is a lot about investigation and using wisdom to figure out what is the right method to get to the results in the most easeful, the quickest, the most thorough and comprehensive way. So there's not one medicine for everyone, but there's maybe like a dozen medicines and one of them will be the right one, sort of thing. But it's really about making it personal and making it unique. The
Mhm.
path's not going to look the same for everybody, but there will be similarities, right? There will be like patterns and rhythms and rhymes between how people are doing things. But it needs to be very, very personal and unique to you and your situation and to what gets you going and lit up.
Mm.
Mm.
So well said. And I'm just thinking about like real world examples to give people of this and like how to do this and how to orient in the direction that we want to go, right? So,
Mm, yeah.
like when we're talking about spiritual bypassing, it's this idea that like people can use meditation to avoid their feelings and to avoid things and they just want to feel good all the time and they don't want to
Mhm.
think about the things that are making them feel bad. And there's this component of non-attachment, but this subtlety of not letting it turn into dissociation and not letting that hyper positivity become like abandoning of the self. Because in subconscious work, we'll do things like parts work, right? It's like integrating a fractured part of the psyche. And it's this idea that a part of you might be feeling a certain way. And we just want to help that part feel safe. And we want to figure out what its purpose is and what it needs because they're all taking care of you. That's the idea of all the parts of ourselves is they're all looking out for us in some way, even the dark ones. And so then when we talk to them and we kind of figure out like what's happening inside and what do they need to feel safe, then they can integrate, but it's usually not always a perfectly positive thing. Sometimes we have to go in and we have to feel why that part is feeling sad or why that part is feeling grief or whatever these feelings are and then we can kind of resolve it and fix it and turn it into something positive. But when it comes to the idea of like people using meditation to avoid their feelings or non-attachment versus dissociation, especially with monkhood, what is your opinion on that?
Again, it's such like a kind of like a complex and nuanced topic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting even with disassociation specifically, right? Is that when I was in the monastery, I did also practice watching my thoughts go past and watching feelings go past me and being non-attached to them. And I told a friend of mine about this, technique that I use. And she said, that just sounds like disassociation, you know? And I was like, huh. And and it was like, well, is it or isn't it? Or is disassociation okay sometimes? Are there things we're supposed to disassociate from? Right. And it, it's interesting also because just to zoom out a little bit, what Western psychology focuses on, um, the mind has hardware and software. The software are the stories, the programs, the beliefs, the habits, the chatter, the stuff that we see. Modern psychology, it just deals with the software. It's trying to get you the best software to work with. Buddhism, however, says we try to get the software kind of humming along so that we can start getting into the hardware, which is like what the meditation is that it's going deeper into the structures of the mind, into consciousness itself, into awareness itself, into like what people, when they do psychedelics, they suddenly get into the hardware a little bit and they're like, oh my God, like I am not what I thought I was. You know what I mean?
It's like the black box where you can code into the computer.
Right. And so it it becomes a whole different thing. I mean, it really starts to dig into the foundational perceptions of reality beyond language, beyond story, beyond identity. It gets super, super foundational. And then, the wisdom that comes after that, it turns into a whole other reality that you start experiencing, because you realize, like, oh, this thing that I was perceiving as a self, there's this body that feels things, and eyes that are seeing things, and ears hearing things, and thoughts that are thinking, and those are all kind of bouncing off of each other. But there's nothing inside of all of that that's called a self or a me. And it starts to kind of just deconstruct the whole experience of reality. And when I work with people now, we just do the software stuff. So, like, kind of back to your question a little bit, right? So we just kind of focus on the software, and how to best deal with the software, how to best update the software, right? How to change beliefs of worthiness, right? Change beliefs of, can I speak? Am I safe to love? Do I feel like I'm stuck, or am I powerful? Can I create? Do I feel purposeful? Do I have a vision for what I'm doing, right? That that that's kind of my main work right now. It's just working with people's programming to get them into a place where they feel like the life that they're living is an accurate reflection and representation of who they are inside. Um, but ultimately, in Buddhism specifically, you then take that, and when your life's humming along nicely, then you go deeper into the actual, like, foundational framework of reality, and start to also deconstruct that stuff and let that stuff shift and fall apart. And that's when, like, the bigger and biggest kind of freedoms come, and the bigger ahas. And I don't even talk about that stuff, because I see that that's the stuff that monks can get to really well. But if you're not in a monastery, if you're not, like, in deep meditation all day long and going through these things, those things, it's unfortunate. I think people usually use psychedelics and stuff to get there, because it bypasses a little bit. But for us who are not living in that kind of complete meditative focused lifestyle, just working on the software, just learning how to be happier, friendlier, softer, more harmonious, live in service. I mean, that's enough, and that's a lot of work, and that's where everyone's getting stuck anyway. So we kind of have to get into there. But if you were going to go deeper, then yeah, it gets to the point where, like, every thought is just thought, every feeling is just feeling, body is just body. If I die, it's okay, it's just body. That kind of stuff does come eventually. But if you don't have the right realizations to accompany that, then you are bypassing. Then you're instead of pulling the stump out of the ground, you're putting a bucket on top of the stump and saying the stump's not there. You know.
That is such a good way to put it. Yes, I like the concept of putting a bucket over the stump. That's like the simplest way
Yeah.
to state what spiritual bypassing is. It's like, I'm just going to ignore this part, and I'm just going to, like, live over here, la-di-da. But it's like, at some point you're going to trip over that stump in your life, and it's going to hit you hard. And
Yeah.
so if you can, like, weed the garden as you go throughout life, then it's like you're way less likely to have something like a midlife
And
crisis
some people
where everything falls apart.
they decorate
Yes.
that stump really nice. So somebody comes and they're like, oh, even to the point where other people will come to your house and be like, wow, that's a beautiful bucket. You're like, I know, it's got crystals on it and lights on it. Even if you can convince and trick everyone else in the world to admire that, you still know that it's because there's a stump underneath it. And you can't lie to yourself. On some level that is still, you are hiding something. And a lot of us spend our lives trying to trick other people that our costume is real, that the decoration, that our presentation is real. And that's the goal, because we feel so hopeless at shifting ourselves. We just stay focused on the validation of the outside world, instead of owning that stuff and saying, I'm pulling out that stump for me,
Yes.
because I don't want it there, because I don't want to go to bed every night knowing that that thing is there. I do it because I love myself and I care about myself. And I'm doing it because I need to do it for my own mental health and well-being.
Well,
And
I
that's
think
the difference.
when people run into those things, one of the hardest emotions they'll come up against is something like forgiveness, whether it's for themselves or somebody else, even though it's the emotion that when you truly feel it, it's been shown to like induce alpha brainwave state the fastest. So basically like a meditative brainwave state. But exactly what you just said of like, this is for you, it's not for the other person. And there's that old Buddhist quote of like, resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I love that quote. And so it's this idea of like, where are you harboring resentment? Where are you harboring anger? Where you're harboring your lack of forgiveness or somewhere where you felt like a victim in your life. And I remind people, like, if you want your immune system to work correctly, if you want to feel strong in your life, you can't feel like a victim. And when people are seeking justice, even when they're like in Batman mode, like seeking justice and they're strong and they're confident, the sense of justice in itself is a state of victimhood.
Mm.
It means that you've been wounded. It means that you've been injured. It means that you're being driven by resentment. And so just knowing that like those are the lower vibration emotions versus if you can come to this place where you make enough space to have forgiveness for yourself and for other people for being human and you actually let go of the energy, now you have all of that energy free to create different things in your life. And that's the idea of regulation, right? Is like someone can get thrown off, but it takes you 20 minutes to regulate instead of 20 years. And so for all of the study and all the things that you teach people and all the things that you like want people in the world to know, what is the concept of regulation? Like what does real regulation feel like?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, real regulation for me, it actually comes down to the nervous system.
Yes.
Um, plain and simple, right? It's that does your body feel relaxed, right? And again, if we equate the body to the inner child, right? But does your body feel relaxed and safe and stable? Or is your body freaking out, intense, and going through things? And so for me, real regulation, it brings a natural sense of levity. I feel like a joy and an openness and an expansion, confident and stable in myself, loving towards other people, that it kind of just creates what I would call an authenticity, just like a genuine authenticity. And I think that there is also this thing where we think, coming back to like the bucket on the stump, that we think that we have to like present in a certain way in the world. I do my best, like when I go to, the supermarket and I'm checking out my food and the person says, "How are you doing today?" Sometimes I'll say like, "I'm not doing great." I won't just be like, "Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you." I'll just practice being real and vulnerable with strangers, which actually I've noticed helps with my regulation, because what I've come to understand is that there is a deeper, you'll appreciate this. There is a deeper aspect in well-being and in, I don't know, unwell-being, that we don't really talk about and identify. And what that is, I will call belonging and or connection. And let me explain what I mean by that. If we were to zoom out of this earth and you're floating in space, everything on that earth is just earth. It's part of the earth. If you zoomed out even further, everything is just the Milky Way. You zoom out even further, everything is just the universe. It's all just a bunch of atoms and stuff, and it's all universe, right? It's all one thing. It's all connected. Now go back into yourself sitting here. Why do I feel like I am different than the world around me? Why do I feel like there's a me and then there's everything else, right? So this basic experience of separation. Now, if you look deeply, everything that you like and you love and you appreciate and you're drawn towards gives you the feeling of connection. Whether that's dancing at a club, whether it's giving someone a hug and making love, whether it's being out in nature, all of the things that we value have the shared experience that there's a sense of heightened connectivity to them, a feeling of connection. Everything that we consider painful, right? Like loss, right? Breakups, anger, things not going right. They all share a sense of separation. So separation to us feels painful. Connection to us feels pleasurable. And using the example of the universe and the earth and the body, it would go to say that the nervous system recognizes truth through what feels pleasurable, right? Actual truth feels good because truth is connection. What is not true, what is illusion, separation, is painful. That our
Mm.
nervous system is pre-programmed to discern between reality and illusion, separation and connection through our feelings of pleasure and pain. And I mean this in like the deeper sense of pleasure, not like eating sugar, hijacking pleasure. I mean like that deeper sense of like, ah, like this feels good. Wow, this is great. Ah, like that actual sense of wellness is always connected to a sense of connection. And that sense of unwellness is always a trauma, right? Is something that happened that was so painful because it made you feel so alone, helpless, stuck, unsafe, right? Disconnected, alone, right? It's me and this thing that's bigger than me, this thing that's scarier than me, this thing that's more painful than me. I am helpless. I don't know what to do about it. So my brain's going to lock that in place to try to understand it, that so that next time that can't happen again, but now I'm actually recreating it.
Oh, that's where I'll see autoimmune come in for people, is it's like
Mm.
their system doesn't trust the universe anymore, so the whole system goes on defense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the way to heal is to one by one start unwinding these experiences and reprogramming the nervous system through all these different thematic. I do it thematically personally. I work with a number of different themes, reconnecting them into that state of connection and belonging, right? It's like rewiring the system so it again all feels connected and all feels safe and all feels like it belongs. And then it kind of hums really nicely again, right? And if there's any like disconnection or illness or disease, it's figuring out what is disconnected. Where is your sense of disconnection in the system? And how do we bring that back into connection, into balance? And you'll see that as you connect it back in yourself, you'll then start feeling differently, you'll start thinking differently, you'll start behaving differently, and your life will start changing.
So I have a very good follow-up question to
Go
this. I
for it.
love this because you're talking about connection to self. Why do so many people feel lonely even when they're constantly connected these days?
Well, when you say connected these days, right?
Yeah, exactly. Connected.
You know, what I've reflected on is how two of our biggest social media platforms, let's say like Facebook, I guess Instagram, and X, right, Twitter, are both run right, Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, who are both dudes that self-admittedly have Asperger's, a form of autism, where they feel a sense of disconnection and they struggle with social cues, right? And so people that have a sense of struggling with social cues and not feeling like like a nervous system connection to other people and like self-admittedly from them like what would be like a natural way, those are the people that are running our platforms of connection and community, right? So, and I think it's interesting because what is Facebook? What is X? What are these things? It's an appearance of a connection through information, right? Words or pictures, but it's not an actual felt sense of connection like you would have in the room with other people or a hug with somebody else, right? So what Facebook and all these things do, that it's a kind of connection,
It's
but
like an initiation to connection. It connects you with people to connect with.
it's a representation of connection, or to say it differently, it's a connection, but it's through information. Information is
Yeah.
through the head, right? And virtual, which is on a screen. So it's even a step further removed from the nervous system. If you're ever on your phone for a little too long and you come back and you're suddenly like, oh my God, I forgot that I was like here in this room and now I feel all fucked up because like I've been disconnected from my body. The virtual space, it's like you're not even in your nervous system anymore. So how can you be connected if you're not even in your nervous system? Right.
Yep.
And,
Very, very
and
good way to put it.
connection is not what something looks like. Connection is a feeling in your nervous system, you know?
Well, and I'll also say there's also this component of like, you're never lonelier than when you're visible but not feeling witnessed. It's like
Right.
when you're in a group of people and you just feel totally unseen, right? It's this like feeling of loneliness. But the key to that is your connection to yourself. So you can be in a room full of people that you just don't connect with, and you're like, meh, I just don't connect with you, but I still feel fine by myself, and I'm going to go have lunch by myself. You know how many people can't eat a meal at a restaurant by themselves because they feel so dysregulated doing it,
Right.
versus being okay, just like being present with yourself and like not being on your phone during that time and not trying to distract yourself. Like it can be its own form of meditation. But
Right.
I think the people that you surround yourself with and realizing that, like, if you're struggling with your health, like, check your community. Like, do you have community? Do you have community outside of your household? Do you have community that can support you in some way? Some people that you feel connected to on more of like a soulful level. And if you don't, that is why stuff like this exists, right? It's like, it's why I created the online community. It's why other people have created online communities. There's so many now. Like, you can just find something that interests you and you will find people that are aligned with you. And that's why I do this stuff, right? Is it's a form of connection, but it's an initiation to connection, like we were just talking about. So now
Mm.
people have met you and they can find you,
Right.
but they aren't going to truly feel connected to you until you guys have an interaction and you
For
get to
sure.
like actually have one-to-one time. So just reminding people that it's like, if you're feeling lonely, reach out.
Mhm.
Like, there are more people around you than you realize. And when you actually go and talk to people in the real world, go talk to your neighbors and your community, and you interact with those people rather than watching the news and thinking that you know what's going on. When you talk to people around you, you realize that there's actually like good people in the world. You have good neighbors, you have good people. It's not just like filled with the world exploding itself. That's for entertainment purposes and a narrative. And so it's like helping people to understand, like, yes, there are things going on in the world, and also please talk to your immediate community and your tribe. Like, we're really only supposed to be able to track about 200 people in our immediate life. So focus on where you are, focus on what is going to actually benefit you. And like, and I know it's this catch 22 of like, people are like, I'm tired, I don't want to go out in the evening, I'm fatigued. But that fatigue also comes from loneliness and the lack of feeling connected and the lack of soulful awakening that comes from people that inspire you. And so knowing that if you can break through the tiredness a little bit to go to like some kind of thing that you enjoy, like I often go to ecstatic dance, right? That's one of the things, like I just go move my body at least once a week and I just kind of like shake out the week. And I meet people there non-verbally where it's like an energetic connection that is filling for me. I get energy from it even after an exhausting day at work. And it doesn't always have to be something where you're talking, right? It can be a movement class, it can be an art class, it can be a meetup outside. It can be whatever, but just reminding people of community and reaching for those when you are feeling lonely, because it is different just thinking that you're connected being on technology all day. But when you sit in your apartment by yourself all day and you're on Zoom doing meetings all day, and then at the end of the day, you wonder why you feel depleted, it's because you just like gave all of your energy to a technological source and you put it in, but you weren't really getting it back in the same way.
Right.
But unless you're doing some kind of group thing where it's like nourishment and you're getting feedback, and or like I get nourished from doing podcasts like this, but it's because even though we're using technology, we're deeply interacting, we are connecting with each other, we're connecting on ideas, we're talking to each other about opinions and asking more about each other, and that is a form of connection. So it just depends on, like, just because you're seeing someone's pictures of their life on social media, that doesn't mean that you're connected. You have to like reach out and talk to that person and interact with them. So that brings me to like, if people wanted to feel this connection, or they wanted to learn some of these concepts, or they wanted to learn more from you, like where would you direct them on like where to begin with this stuff? And like, especially if they're feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
because most people are, let's be real.
Yeah, totally. I mean, specifically to connect with me, sethmonk.com, Seth Monk on Instagram. Feel free just to connect, reach out, let's have a chat.
And I love that your name is Seth Monk and you wear a monk, but really your name actually is Monk, which is just great.
It's easy.
Easy for people
Um,
to remember.
but for people to deal with that sense of overwhelm in themselves, honestly, physical movement is great. Nature is great. Like you said, dance is great. Yoga is great. Go on a walk. So I've found like jump in some water. Um, Even just take a long shower, like things that are really simple, but just getting your awareness back to your physical body is such an easy one. Get connecting to some trusted person and spending time with them and sharing, finding somebody that you can share with or somebodies that you can share with. It's kind of the simplest things that our nervous systems since forever have been programmed to utilize movement, to utilize the elements outside, to utilize community, fire, right? To sit by a fire and watch the fire. um, just very elemental things are often the most powerful. Sometimes when I'm on road trips, I won't listen to music or podcasts, and I'll just sit and drive and just be with like whatever's happening, be with whatever discomfort. I I found an amazing practice in mirror work where I'll go in my bathroom and I'll talk to myself in the mirror. And it's this amazing feedback loop where it's you and like another version of you, but somehow it feels like you're talking to another person. And you might feel like you're going crazy a little bit sometimes, but it actually is this interesting way where you can just take all these thoughts and just put them out and talk to yourself, but out here. And it's a really great, it's almost like journaling, right? It's like you're just taking everything here and you're putting it out of the mind. Just a way to see this, but externally. And whether you can do that with another person, whether you do it with the mirror, whether you can journal, right? Whether you go on a walk and just talk out loud to yourself or just think. But it's, I like the word you use, and you're gonna have to remind me. It's letting the discharge, I believe you said, like letting all that psychic energy just start to discharge. And what's happened with the advent of the iPhone and that, the devices is that there's been an atrophying, right? An atrophying of our ability to forbear, an atrophying of our ability to feel discomfort. Like you said, people going out by themselves to restaurants.
Oh, there's a whole book about it called The Comfort Crisis.
That's a beautiful way to explain it, right? The comfort crisis. I already know what that book's about just by hearing that title, right? Because I mean, that's it, is that the moment things get a little bit, I see it in elevators. You go in an elevator and there's someone else in the elevator and you're both standing there next to each other, not talking, and it feels awkward. I often just start a conversation with someone because, like, whatever, I'm a person. But often, like, people will just pick up their phone and just like try to do something, right? Or sit on the train and just try to do something, wait in line, like that little bit of discomfort is right. I need a crutch. But that rewires the brain to 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 struggle against anything that's not giving you an immediate sense of, I guess, yeah, comfort.
Well, yeah, because regulation is not being calm all the time. It's regulating whatever's coming in well.
And regulating often requires you to have to not be calm. You might have to yell or cry or do some push-ups or like get some of that dance, right? Like often the way to regulate is not the numbing stuff. It's actually like that energy wants to express, that energy wants to be seen and to be heard. And if you are scared and you jump and your shoulders are up, right? You need to be like, hey, what are you doing? And then you can feel relaxed again, like an animal. It's like, and then it can relax. But if something scares us, like we're on our phone and we're watching bombing and stuff and we're getting more and more scared, but we're not. And then what? You go to bed or you try to like live
Over the thing that you have zero control over.
like this. Exactly. Right. It's even worse is that we're being shown the worst of the worst from around the world because that's what gets more clicks and views. So the algorithm is skewed towards the most traumatic and triggering things, including there being whole bot farms of people that are creating fake content to specifically trigger you if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a man or a woman or black or white or Jewish or Christian or this. Or, like we have like millions of fake accounts on social media specifically designed to trigger people, to get them riled up, to destabilize our society, to get you to look and see more clicks. People with many different agendas doing this to us. um and so there's a whole thing about reclaiming your focus. There's a whole thing about
Your attention is the most valuable asset you have in
yeah,
today's society.
yeah. And recognizing that everything you're watching on your phone, somebody created that with an intention. And what would be a fascinating experiment is to scroll through your phone, and with every single thing you see on your phone, this could be a whole book in itself. What is the intention of this person posting? What is the intention? What is the intention? And you'll start to see like that's a political agenda. That's someone selling their coaching program. That's a news station trying to show a horrible thing. That's somebody that's saying this group is great. This group sucks. And you could probably go through and start to pull out what are the different agendas, because every single thing you're seeing on your phone is a piece of content that was produced for you to consume, and the person is producing it with a certain agenda for a certain kind of consumer, trying to get the consumer to either watch more of their things, to feel a certain way, to buy a certain thing, right? Every single video you watch on your phone has an intention to get you to do something by consuming it. And you're not even aware because you're just waking up in the morning or lying in bed at night and you're just consuming without realizing that these things are all pulling you in these different directions.
The being pulled in different directions, I think that's also why people are exhausted. So I'll remind people, like, focus on just the things that you want to focus on. It's exactly why, like, I made this channel, why I made the community, why I do the stuff that I do, why you do the stuff that you do, is to make the internet better, right? There's all that crap out there on the internet. You don't have to watch it, just like you don't have to listen to your bad thoughts. So just like pick the thing that's serving you, pick the thing that's driving you forward, pick the community that's nourishing you, right? And it's all about like choosing where to place yourself and interacting with the right people. And then realizing your patterns, right? So this whole conversation has been a reminder that like healing is not about like performing peace. It's this idea that becoming more honest, more embodied, and like more connected with ourselves and others is where healing is going to lie. And reminding people that this is possible. It just takes some effort. But like there's a new company coming out and they're doing like subconscious work for corporate companies. And I really loved the way that she described it in our mastermind. She was like, we're basically going to consider it like unprocessed anger. Like in the future, we're going to look at it like unprocessed anger is like horse poop in the street. Used to be really normal. Now it's kind of weird. And so it's like when people realize that we can process these emotions and we can do these things and we don't have to repress them all the time, our society will be healthier. So, I mean, man, I could continue talking to you about this all day, but I also want to make sure to honor your time. So if people wanted help with this, I think you're one of the perfect people to help them with this. Additionally, like I have all the stuff in the community if you guys need more community, and like Seth is one of the people I want to bring on to be a guest speaker in the community as well. And if they wanted to find you, I know you said your website, just say it one more time for anybody listening, but you're going to like
Seth Monk.
SethMonk.com. Okay, that's easy. And then if you wanted to leave people with like one thought of all the things that you want people to know, what would that be?
You are not who you think you are. Your life looks the way it does because of the beliefs you carry that have created behaviors in you that have created your life. When you can examine and shift these beliefs, you will create new thoughts, emotions, behaviors, right? If you feel unworthy, you behave like you're unworthy. You have a life that treats you like you're not worthy, from your relationships to your clothes to your living situation, right? And if you go all the way back to that thing and you shift it to I am worthy, suddenly you have new sets of feelings. You set new boundaries. You talk in a new way. You dress in a new way. You have different likes. You have a new sort of community. And suddenly you'll look up and your whole life will look different, right? So everything that we experience is very programmable and changeable. But if you're carrying an unworthy belief and you're struggling to have different sorts of relationships, the work is all the way back here in the belief. And so you could exhaust yourself trying to affect change in the wrong place and never get the change and feel like I keep banging my head against the wall and nothing's changing. And it's because you've put the ladder up against the wrong wall, as they say, right? So I want you to know that whatever you're experiencing in your life
it can change. Things get better. They do. Continuously can get better, right? But it's knowing about where to put your focus and how to create those changes. And then it all trickles out into that, and it creates these ripples, and your entire life can keep looking better, keep looking different. So just know that it's not hopeless. It's not lost. You're not alone. That there is 100% a way for you to be sitting in the middle of the life you've always wanted to be in, and it can happen faster than you've ever thought it could happen. It's just about making the changes in the right places. And
Your
I
per-
want to leave you that.
your perception colors everything. I think
Yeah.
that was so well said. Yes, and I'll just end with this last little quote that I feel like a lot of people know, and I'll just remind them of it. It's like that story of two boys that were raised by a parent that wasn't great, and one of them becomes a bad parent, and he says, "Look at my past, how could I not?" And one of them becomes a good parent, and he says, "Look at my past, how could I not?" So it's all about your perception of how you want to move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat about this, Seth. I love talking to you. For anybody listening, if you have any questions about anything, please comment, please ask us, please comment on any posts, things like that, and we will answer you. We're here for you. That's why we do this stuff, is we want to interact with you. We want you to have community. We want you to have people to reach out to. So please reach out, and I hope you enjoyed, and we'll look forward to next time.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you for being here and reclaiming your health sovereignty. If you feel ready for deeper guidance and reconnecting to your inner intelligence and finally not going the journey alone, I created the Wellness Evolution community for that exact purpose, for you. It is a place rooted in education, foundational physiology, and community support where you can learn to trust your body again. Visit www.wellnessevolutioncommunity.com for a free quiz to find out where your body is at in your healing stages.